Most chaotic hijack in history.
20 minutes after the departure of Ethiopian Airlines Flight 961, a man stood up from his seat and ran up the aisle towards the cockpit.
Oh, hell no.
As he was running, two other men also stood up and followed him closely towards the front of the plane. As they ran past the passengers, the men shouted to everybody aboard to stay seated at all costs.
Oh,
because
shit.
they had a bomb. When they arrived at the cockpit door, they slammed it open and confronted the two pilots. They told the pilots that there were 11 hijackers on board and that they wanted to fly across the globe immediately.
Yo, how did he get in there? Crazy. Appreciate 10-1, Crazy. Don't they keep the cockpit like shut all times?
Almost immediately after the plane was hijacked, the captain of the aircraft, Mr. Abate, had a few things running through his mind. You see, Mr. Abate had flown well over 11,000 hours in his time as a pilot.
Hey, love
and
hours.
in those 11,000 hours, he had extraordinarily survived two other hijacked planes as a pilot. Now, the odds of getting
Wait, how often do hijack fucking planes happen?
hijacked 3 times is a ridiculous anomaly, and since Mr. Abate had dealt with hijacks in the past, he likely remembered some significant details about what was hijacked 3 times other hijacked planes as a pilot. Now, the odds of getting hijacked 3 times is a ridiculous anomaly.
That's crazy.
And since Mr. Abate had dealt with hijacks in the past, he likely remembered some significant details about what was going on. However, there would be a bit of a problem this time, because no matter what Mr. Abate remembered, this hijack would be a bit different.
Yo, that's mad. Imagine being a pilot and this is your third hijack. Your third.
The plane was on a flying route from Ethiopia to Kenya, Africa, and it was a Boeing 767 with 175 passengers on board. It was supposed to be a short flight, but the 3 hijackers had different plans. After they went on record telling the pilots that there were 11 of them on board, right away, they reportedly beat the first officer and forced him out of the cockpit.
Oh, shit.
They then went ahead and grabbed the emergency safety axe and emergency fire extinguisher and ordered Mr. Abate to change the destination from Kenya all the way to Australia.
What are they gonna do in Australia?
Flying all the way to Australia would pose more than a few problems. Firstly, the amount of fuel it would take to fly across the globe is far more than the amount given for the simple flight to Kenya.
Well, obviously.
The plane simply didn't have enough fuel to meet the demands to fly there. But for some reason, the hijackers weren't having it. They had reportedly...
Wait. So these guys came up with a plan to hijack a plane and then didn't realize that the plane ain't gonna have fuel to where they want to go. Fucking idiots. Fucking idiots.
read on an in-flight magazine on the plane that the type of Boeing 767 they were on could fly a max capacity of 11 hours. To the hijackers, Mr. Abate was lying to get an emergency landing. Mr. Abate, however, refuted strongly and insisted that he wasn't lying, showing the men that the fuel indicator on the plane only indicated enough for a flight to Kenya. But still, the hijackers did not care and continued to threaten Mr. Abate,
Idiots.
saying that if he didn't meet their demands, they would do the job. There was no way that they were going to make it even remotely far once they leave the African coast. Once they were over the ocean, there was little to nothing that could be done.
That's
But
scary,
even with this
that is.
knowledge, it seemed like the hijackers, no matter what they were told, would still deny the pilot's advice. They would act weirdly refutive and didn't seem to believe or want to believe anything that the pilot said. After this frustrating interaction, two of the hijackers then left the cockpit and ordered everybody else on the plane to put their heads down and stop talking.
Hey, yo, chat, what you doing in this situation? Anyone? Hey, I've seen so many TV shows and movies about this situation. I feel like I've got all the knowledge to take them all out. Who's with me? First, we got to pass like something around the plane to get everyone on the same side. And then when I do the signal, which is signals massive cocks, right? Then we all attack at once. You know what I'm saying? I feel like we could do it if I'm on that plane. You're in?
talking. They then took two of the hostesses in the flight crew and seated them next to each other, demanding them to make an announcement in 3 languages to everybody on board. The announcement notified everybody that the plane had been hijacked, that their destination will be changed, and that if anybody tried to intervene, they would use the explosive device.
I think they're lying.
At this point, it was hard to imagine how this would end up playing out. With no refueling stops, it seemed like the hijackers just wanted the plane to run out of fuel over the ocean. So for a final, last-ditch effort, Abate advised them to land the plane at Mombasa. It was near the shore closest to Australia and allowed for a refueling stop in the most efficient spot. But as expected, the hijackers refused this sentiment and ordered Mr. Abate and the crew to fly over the ocean immediately. They then shut off access to the radio and adamantly forced Abate to turn left. In this situation, Abate likely knew exactly how this would end up playing out if they flew over the ocean. It doesn't take a genius to know that an hour of fuel won't make it to Australia. So this time, with a more certain seriousness, Abate strongly dissuaded the hijackers from attempting their foolish plan to fly to Australia. But instead of cooperating, the leader of the hijackers wanted Abate to call an Australian air center to let them know of their arrival. They started looking through the flight's timetable to find a number to call to Australia and showed it to Abate. Abate used this opportunity to ignore them and instead called the company radio, informing them of the amount of fuel they had and the flight path that they were on. He knew calling Australia likely wouldn't change much, but when the hijackers realized what he did, the leader finally snatched the headset from Abate, now angrily forcing him.
Yo, are they gonna crash land? Bro, the only way out of this is crash landing, right?
To turn left. With no more choices or stalling methods, Abate finally turned left to Australia. And shockingly, after realizing that they were finally on their way to Australia, the leader decided to relax by sitting in the first officer's seat and messing around with the plane's control center while drinking whiskey and kicking the rudder.
Oh, they're crazy.
Abate, seriously concerned, adamantly continued to warn him of the lack of fuel that the plane had, but he was met with almost a complete lack of care. The hijacker could not understand the danger that they had put these people in. He continued to play with the plane's controls, fiddling them and pulling on the thrust lever at random.
What?
This was really odd to Abate. I mean, what was the reason for their action? He knew from experience that people usually have a reason, and in any crisis like this, the most important part is understanding and controlling the situation. But unfortunately here, control had seemingly slipped from his hands, and he could—
Yo, I ain't gonna lie, if I'm on the plane and I'm seeing that they're doing this, and like, bro, if somebody's doing this on the plane, they want to die. And if I see that, then, hey, you know what I mean? What's the point of just behaving? If you're gonna die anyway, I'm fighting. I'm fighting. I don't care, bro. I don't care. If I'm seeing all this, it's on. It's on, bro.
Could only watch as chaos unfolded. This feeling of helplessness in the hands of unknown people with power and control is terrifying. And while nothing can compare to the terror that Captain Abate and the passengers endured, there's a similar sense of helplessness many of us feel today in a far different way. You see, a few months ago, this YouTube channel was hacked, and I lost access to the community I had
Chat, you ever been hacked?
Exclusive 60% off of an annual Incogni plan. Stay safe out there, seriously. It likely became clear to Abate in this moment that the hijackers had no interest or care for the safety or survival of the plane and its passengers. It probably also became clear that the hijackers' threats of a bomb on board were likely lies as well, as was their claim of having 11 hijackers. As they flew further away from the shore, the plane slowly lost more fuel, eventually reaching a critical level. It's important to note that when an aircraft runs out of fuel, it doesn't just simply fall out of the sky. Planes can glide, and can glide surprisingly far. Obviously not Australia far, but quite far nonetheless. Pilots in these situations are trained to be able to land aircraft in such off-putting circumstances. And on top of this, because Abate had stalled the hijackers by talking to them for so long, instead of just turning out into the empty Indian Ocean, which would have certainly been fatal, he was now far enough south that he could now turn out into the Mozambique Channel, which was filled with islands where he might be able to land. So when Abate originally turned left towards Australia, he made the calculated decision to fly towards an island he had never even seen before.
Hey, yo, as a pilot, bro, you gotta be so smart, especially in these kind of situations, to think fast like this in those kind, like with that much pressure, you're being hijacked, mate. So smart.
The Comoros, a small group of volcanic islands in the Mozambique Channel near Madagascar. He figured that once the hijackers saw the plane running out of fuel, he could convince them to let him glide the plane and land there.
Yeah,
so without
good
informing the
quickly.
hijackers and still flying in the general direction of Australia, Abate headed towards the Comoros, prioritizing the safety of the passengers. It was clear now that Abate had to take full control of the situation, as the hijackers, who were intoxicated from whiskey and becoming increasingly angry and chaotic, were unsafe and uncooperative. Abate could rely on them no longer. So finally, after a stressful time flying in the direction of the Comoros Islands, Abate saw them come into view and began circling them. The hijackers, who had previously told Abate not to descend below a certain height, demanded to know what he was doing. At the same time, the critical low fuel indicator appeared on the plane, and Abate, who had already started his plan, pleaded non-stop with the men to let him land the plane at the Comoros. Chaos had ensued and fuel was running out. The hijackers, still completely unconcerned, reiterated that they didn't want Abate to descend any further, threatening him in anger.
Yo, do they think the plane could just stay up in the air with no fuel? Like, are they actually dumb?
At the same time of their threats, however, the right engine of the plane lost power. Abate, now trying everything in his power to convince the hijackers of the severity of the situation, showed the leader the critical indication of the plane's right engine, showing him that they were now in a seriously dangerous situation. Finally, the hijackers reacted to this. They left the cockpit and went to the cabin door to talk among themselves about what to do. But they still didn't seem to care much, and seemed to have a very odd, pessimistic view of the entire situation.
What's that
As they were speaking, however, with no hijackers around to stop him, Abate realized he finally had an opportunity to ask for help. He used this one and only chance to send a message to everybody on board through the intercom.
Wait, huh?
Ladies and gentlemen, this is your pilot.
Fine.
We have run out of fuel and we are losing one engine this time. We are expecting a crash landing, and that is all I have to say. We have already lost one engine, and I ask all passengers to react to the hijackers. The hijackers...
Wait. Does that mean attack? That means attack, right? That means attack. Everyone, this is Sparta!
Now, seriously annoyed, returned and knocked the microphone out of Abate's hands. Abate, more concerned about the plane, knew that the speed of the aircraft will drop significantly because of the right side's engine failure. So he began to descend the aircraft to maintain speed and control of it, hoping he could safely glide it down to the airport. But again, shockingly, the leaders of the hijackers reacted to this by violently messing and playing with the controls of the plane.
What?
The hijackers ended up disconnecting the autopilot, which sent the plane into an erratic change in speed, making the flight path become unpredictable and random. As Abate struggled to regain control of the aircraft, the left engine died. Now, with zero power controlling the plane's thrust, Abate had no choice but to descend against the hijackers' wishes. Abate was forced to glide over the Indian Ocean, right above the Comoros Islands. Now, with the hijackers' intense disapproval, he angrily shouted at Abate to not go any lower like he had said before. Abate...
Yo, are you stupid? There's no engines. You're out of fuel. How can you not go lower, mate? Are you actually... Bro, honestly, I would just say to the hijackers, just shoot me now. Like, I genuinely can't deal with your... Like, how dumb you are. Just shoot me now, bro.
Pleaded that the fuel had already been exhausted and that the plane was completely out of power. But this time, the hijacker seemed more serious about his demand and ordered Mr. Abate to not descend further at all costs, threatening to seriously hurt him if he didn't listen. Abate, likely fed up with this guy at this point, responded to this threat, saying, quote, "I am already dead because I am flying an airplane without engine's power." The plane was descending rapidly and getting dangerously close to the water. Inside the cabin of the plane, however, the first officer, Giannis, who had previously been beaten and ejected from the cockpit, had inspected the aircraft. he found passengers who were already wearing their life jackets. Normally, this would be good and proactive. However, some of the passengers had already inflated their life jackets. Knowing that this could be potentially catastrophic, he adamantly instructed everybody on board to deflate their life jackets immediately, and only inflate them at the right moment to avoid drowning under the plane's weight once it crashed. He instructed as many people as he could, and also taught everyone the proper bracing position for impact. He knew that there was likely no hope for landing at this point. However, the language barrier of English only likely made communication far more difficult for the passengers that didn't speak English. This led to a huge amount of people not fully understanding what Giannis meant. He did the best he could to teach everybody. Now, seriously running out of time, knowing that the crash was imminent, Giannis told the rest of the crew to continuously teach everybody on board the proper instructions. He then went back to the cockpit and forced his way in, past the intoxicated hijackers, shouting at them to let him help Abate. After getting in and adjusting himself into his seat, knowing that the crash will happen at any moment, he helped Abate with the heavy plane controls, trying his best to stabilize the aircraft and take control of the situation. All while at the same time, the hijackers themselves still continued to mess around with the controls, creating a completely
are they all just on drugs? Like, what are they actually doing?
Uncertain and chaotic situation. At this point, the plane was on a collision course with the water, just barely off of the coast of the island, and the aircraft was running on almost nothing. The altitude meter indicated that they were 150 feet above the water, and the flight crew, who had done everything that they possibly could have, were now left all alone with the full control of this massive aircraft barreling towards the water. They did everything that they possibly could have, but now they had to prepare for the worst. Abate and Giannis were now forced to prepare Ethiopia.
Yo, chat, do you reckon that the terrorists on the plane just wanted the plane to crash by any means? That's all they wanted. So they don't care what happened to it, where it went, what direction. They just said Australia because they knew that like it had no fuel. Playing around with the controls. They just wanted it to crash.
Ethiopian Airlines Flight 961 for a ditch into the Indian Ocean.
What, is this real footage? What's this?
On the shore of an island, a tourist on vacation was enjoying the beachside views of the ocean, recording her good time on holiday. Real footage? It was a beautiful afternoon. However, an oddly placed plane was getting uncomfortably close to the water. Thinking for some odd reason that this was some sort of a weird air show, the woman panned her camera, and what could be seen in the footage I'm about to show you was Flight 961 ditching into the ocean.
Oh shit. Oh my god.
Abate and Giannis' attempt to line the plane up with the surf didn't turn out as expected, as the tip of the left wing dug into the water, which sent the plane into a terrifying cartwheel. Due to the horrifying nature of the crash,
I'm guessing what he was trying to do was try and match it with the wind so it's perfectly straight, so it like kind of like glides on the water, right? That just went wrong. That flipped.
Passengers were killed upon impact. And unfortunately, those that kept their life jackets in cartwheel. Due to the horrifying nature of the crash, numerous passengers were killed upon impact. And unfortunately, those that kept their life jackets inflated, purposefully or not, were horrifyingly pinned to the roof of the plane underwater. The only people to survive after the impact were those who were thrown outside of the plane or those who managed to swim through the debris underwater to the outside of the plane. For the people that were miraculously and somehow alive, a quick and fast response from the island proved to be very important.
Oh my God.
The plane was right next to the shore, and this tiny little island with little infrastructure had to take on the task of saving these people. They all rushed to the plane with small boats and transported people down dirt roads more than 16 kilometers to barely functioning hospitals. The nurses and emergency teams could barely handle the people and struggled to treat them. They did the absolute best that they could for how small of an island they were. They were very impoverished and had a small team, but they managed to save many, many lives. Ultimately, however, over 125 people were killed.
Wait. What the fuck? Fatal injuries, survivors with serious injuries, survivors with no injury. Damn. No one at the back of the plane survived. Not one person, bro. Oh, wait, no. Oranges survived with injuries. Oh, quite a few at the back survived then, but with injuries. Damn, no one in the middle. I ain't sitting in the middle of the plane ever again. Jesus.
Leaving 50 passengers alive, and all 3 hijackers who had forced Abate against his will to ditch into the ocean had died. Of the cabin crew, 7 of them had unfortunately perished, but 2 of the crew miraculously survived this crash. Both Giannis and Abate were alive. The 2 men that undoubtedly were the reason that anybody survived at all were alive. Their actions in the face of such a tragic situation go without explanation, but they handled each situation and task with the utmost professionalism and heroism that they could muster. Abate himself was a crucial piece, as his almost unbelievable bravery and professionalism was nothing short of absolutely incredible. He did everything he possibly could to find an outcome that saved as many lives as possible. And for as tragic of a situation this is, he treated each passenger and moment with the most care that he possibly could. Abate was a perfect captain for this flight. Finally, after this flight
Damn, it is a shame, chat, that the landing was slightly off. Like, I know it's a hard landing, bro. I know, but if it didn't tip aggressively and spin, probably more would survive. Well, definitely more would survive that.
1996, multiple changes in aviation rules were implemented to prevent things like this from happening again in the future. Things like stricter fuel calculations, better refueling procedures, and significant changes in airline security protocols changed the way the airplanes flew altogether. So, if anything at all, in the face of this horrifying tragedy, those that had unfortunately perished had ultimately contributed to the overall safety of future airline expeditions. We as people are now safer on planes because of the lessons learned from this disaster and those like. And for that, may all of those who have perished on Ethiopian Airlines Flight 961 rest peacefully.
Yo, it's very sad, but it is true. Like, anything that happens bad with planes just makes them safer. But it is sad that people have to die for that. Do you know what I mean?
Ethiopian Airlines Flight 961 rest peacefully.
Damn, bro. Crazy.